Hello everybody, so today we're going to talk about how the economy works. This economic machine we got there that we humans created. How does it work? What happens and all that stuff. Now this video is based on Ray Dalio's video, how the economic machine works, and I'm going to link it in the description below. I highly suggest you check it out because it is a wonderful video. So my assumption of what the economy was and what it actually is was totally different. See, my assumption was, what is the economy? Economy is, well, when I make money and when I spend money. It's that simple, right? That's my economy. I go to my job, I get a paycheck, I go spend money on groceries or whatever I need. That's my economy. And in a way, it is. But in a lot of other ways, it's not. Economy is a huge thing. There's so many facets to it, and we're going to learn a few important ones. So what is the economy? Well, economy is sum of all transactions that happen in a country. All the transactions. And there's one important thing to learn, very important thing to learn. Is one man spending is other man's income. Think about it. You go buy a product, you're spending money. The other person selling a product, he's earning money. So one man's spending is other man's income. That's why you hear the government always saying, well, go out and spend. You have to spend. Right now, I don't know when you're watching this video, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. And the government's doing a stimulus, and they're like, well, go out and spend. You have to go spend. They're giving people money to spend because one man's spending is other man's income. So what is a market? Well, market is a place where all the transactions occur for a particular product. So gold, silver, car, all these are creating different markets. There's a transaction going, right? I'm giving you money for gold, or I'm turning in gold for money, and all different markets, thousands, millions of markets in the country create the economy. That's what the economy is made out of. The biggest ball players in the US economy, the biggest, forget Apple, Facebook, all these companies, the biggest ball players are the government because they collect taxes. If I'm not wrong, I think the US government almost, I think, collects around $1 trillion or more of taxes a year. That's huge. You know, that's compared to revenue of Apple, which is in billions. US government collects taxes in trillions. And the central bank is the only place, as far as what I've learned, is where money is created. Like it's where money is printed, and the central bank controls the economy by printing money more or less and influencing interest rates. And we're going to talk about both these things later on how they affect the economy. But forget about anybody big companies. These are the biggest two ball players. That's why it's so important to keep these two things in check, because when they go amok, the economy goes to shit. Or if they do a great job, the economy does very good. Credit. Now this was something that I learned. This is something that I was not aware of. And to me, credit was, I have credit cards. That's about it. And that's part of credit. But credit is the most important part of the economy. Because think about it. In America, we call ourselves capitalists. What is capital? Capital is money. It's pretty much the ability to borrow money to create something, right? So you have $10,000, but you need 100 to make your business work. You go to the bank, get capital for your business, create what you need to create, because that's how money is created. See, the lender goes and he wants to make money, right? The lender's got money. He goes to the central bank. So I don't know, Bank of America, right? That's your lender. The lender goes to the central bank, takes money, and they want to give it to you so they can earn interest. That is how credit is created. And usually when there's high interest rate, less people borrow. When it's low interest rate, a lot of people borrow. 2008 crisis, it was a lot of people were borrowing but couldn't pay back. The credit overnight disappeared. When credit is created, and credit can be created out of thin air. It literally can. Forget the bank. You and me can sit down and say, hey, I'm going to give you $1,000 and you can give me 5% interest. Credit created out of thin air. And the US economy is the sum of all that. So credit is an asset to the lender. So if I lend you money, I'm creating an asset and you're creating a liability because you got to pay me back plus interest. And credit leads to spending, which leads to driving the economy, because don't forget, one man's spending is other man's earning. It's that simple. Now, this is a huge part, cycles. And this is very important, because if you can understand cycles, you can kind of prepare better for yourself, and you kind of understand what are these government in high positions doing? Like, what are these treasury secretaries doing? What are the president is doing? Like, how does that affect you? How can you prepare yourself? And I think a lot of investment is about understanding cycles, because if you can understand cycles and you kind of know which part you're in the cycle, you know when to buy, when to sell. And that's where, good investors, bad investors come in. Some investors can understand these cycles very good, others can't. And this is where pretty much I think all of the investments about long-term investment is understanding the cycles. So credit measures short-term growth, productivity is what long-term growth is. So in a way, and I think this is like a golden nugget out of the book, is when we're spending more than we are making. So we're spending more than we're making, we're actually borrowing from our future self. So what we're thinking is, okay, we're going to increase now, make a lot of money, and then later we can reduce our spending a little bit and write off that increased growth. That's what we're pretty much doing. That's what credit is all about. And think about it. The US economy is only 3 trillion money versus 50 trillion credit. And how can you kind of think about it? And that's a great example Ray gives in his video, is cash versus tab. You go to the bar and you say, listen, I want to start a tab, and you keep starting a tab, and you go get a drink one day, it's $10, another drink one day, $20, another drink third day, $30. You do it for years. Well, now your tab's $1,000 versus you paying $1,000 up front. You accumulated that credit over time. That's the difference between credit and cash. And think about it, the US economy is $50 trillion credit versus $3 trillion actual money. That's crazy. And credit is bad, see, in a way, in certain instances, because when it's used to finance things that don't pay back, you're not going to have any kind of productivity out of that credit, right? Think about it. So if you are giving out credit for somebody to buy machine to produce something that's going to lead to it making money, great, you have a return on investment. You're lending somebody money to buy a TV, well, that ain't going to give you a return on your investment. So certain types of credit are better than others. Different kind of cycle, short-term debt cycle, long-term debt cycle. And short-term debt cycle happens a lot, 5 to 8 years. Spending increases, prices rise, and leads to inflation. And usually what central bank does is it increases the interest rates and reduce the spending. It just reduce the credit, which slows down the spending and causes deflation a little bit. Because that's what central bank's job is to control those things, so it can control human behavior, so it can control the economy, because that's all it comes down to. Long-term debt cycle, and that's interesting, and this usually lasts 75 to 100 years, because the reason these cycles happen, and this is one of those things that they're gonna keep on happening because of human nature. No matter how far we've come, no matter how far our civilization has come, we are still humans governed by laws of human nature. And that's why we keep on doing the same thing again and again, even though we have all the information in the world. In 2008 crisis, before that, people knew all the information, but they ignored it because it's human nature. Our job is to understand this better, to counter it. That is it. That is all our job. So over time, what happens is when the credit is freely available, well, more and more people are going to borrow it. It's human nature. It's free money. Why wouldn't you borrow it? Which leads to more debt, and that creates a long-term debt cycle. You can think of a long-term debt cycle as like a macro view. You're zooming out, you're doing a satellite view, and you can think about short-term debt cycle as looking through, maybe you're just looking at your city, what's happening in that city. So over time, like just in 2008 crisis, we got used to, cheap mortgage and all that, and we bought it like crazy, and people leveraged freaking all kinds of mortgages, and they thought, hey, nothing's gonna ever happen because it's all on the up and up. Well, dominoes started falling and shit happened. And usually in long-term debt cycles, there's a very high debt burden. What that means is there's debts going up, well, income's going up, but eventually debt's going faster than income, and you can't pay that debt. It's hard to pay that debt. So usually you default or other stuff happens. We're going to talk about that in deleveraging. That's what happens, and that's what kind of is happening, I think, in the US economy right now. We're deleveraging a lot because we're doing these four things. In deleveraging, income goes down, credit disappears, asset prices are squeezing, stock market crashes, and social tension rises. Right now, income is down, credit is a little low, asset prices and a lot of asset prices going down. But this is the caveat though. Stock market is doing great. Social tension is on the rise. It meets few of these criteria, and that's why it's kind of hard to predict, because you kind of don't know. You're kind of trying to predict human nature. It's very unpredictable. You don't know where it's going to go. But we're in an economy right now because we are the reserve currency of the world, and we can print as much as we want, and people are still going to buy our bonds. People are still going to buy our shit because they believe the US economy is in a good position. So in deleveraging, borrowers sell assets and people become less worthy. Positive reinforcement happens. So borrowers like, you are not as worthy as you were because I don't trust you're going to pay me back, so I'm not going to give you credit. And this is the point where interest rates are already low. They're you know what I mean? If you're at 0% right now, we're going to go -%. Oh, you borrow from me and I'm going to pay you money? Well, that's going to be interesting territory. I don't know how that works. But often you can fix deleveraging, and a lot of countries go through this. This is just not an American thing. Economy usually, the capitalist economy, a lot of countries go through this, fixing deleveraging. And the first way is to cut spending, austerity. People cut spending, they start paying off debt, they start try to produce more income, which is hard because it's kind of hard to grow when you don't have credit to grow. But people try their best. Second is people default on debt. They're like, F it, I can't pay this. This is ridiculous. And then this is where depression happens. People don't pay the bank freaks out. People start withdrawing their money, and banks out of money. Because, if the central bank starts printing money like no other day, your money is going to be worthless. And people start to realize that, hey, a lot of our wealth is really not my wealth. Because think about it, a lot of people think, oh, I'm wealthy. I got my car, I got my, $300,000 house, I'm wealthy. Well, overnight, if your car's worth $50 and your house is worth $100, well, you ain't wealthy, are you? So that's what usually happens when you start defaulting on debt. Well, companies here to pay the debt over time. And governments collect fewer taxes. There's less income, so of course they're going to collect fewer taxes. And they start to create stimulus plans and create large deficits. This is nothing new. You might look at the US economy and say, oh my God, they're creating large deficits. That's part of human nature. It's going to happen. We only think short term. We don't think long term. Our deficit's all-time high. Our debt's all-time high. Part of what we are. We do this to ourselves. Wealth redistribution, raising taxes on the wealthy. And when you hear about wealth redistribution, you think about, Robin Hood, right? Oh, Robin Hood's going to come and take rich people's money. Well, that's part, according to Ray, that's part of deleveraging. You raise taxes on the wealthy because this is what happens. Every 50, 100 years, wherever the long-term cycle starts, you have to correct capitalism, because capitalism has a way of running amok. What happens is few people get wealthy. They're going to change the system in their advantage, and the competition goes small and small and small. Look at Amazon. It's pretty much killing the small businesses, right? Happened before. It happened in Dale Carnegie's time. He did the same thing. It happens again and again and again. It's going to keep on happening because it's human freaking nature. But raising taxes on the wealthy, redistributing wealth to the people who actually, because how much money a wealthy person can spend? Not a lot. They're not going to spend a lot. But the middle class, lower class, they're going to go out, buy products. And remember, one person's income, spending is the other person's income. That's what wealth distribution is about. And the fourth way to fix deleveraging is printing money. Central bank has the ability to print money. They're the only one printing money. When they print money, causes inflation. The government goes and buys stocks, which increases asset prices, right? So think about this just in very small terms. A lot of people are buying houses. Well, there's more demand than supply. The prices of house soar. When your prices of house soar, well, now you're creating wealth. You can go to the bank and say, listen, my house is worth $300,000 and $50,000 to do A, B, and C. You can leverage your house. That is why the central bank controls the print of money. But this is the caveat. The central bank can only print money and buy assets. But the government can spend money. So what the central bank does is it goes and buys government bonds. That leads to government having the money to spend on goods and services. Central banks printing money, buying bonds in the government, giving money to the government and the money. Now, if you have smart people in your government and people controlling central bank, it's going to be good. If they're not, if they're only thinking short term about themselves, it's going to be bad. It usually takes 8 to 10 years. And that's why they call it the lost decade, because a lot of uncertainty in that period is crazy time, lost decade. So 3 lessons we learned here, 3 important lessons. Don't have income rise faster than productivity, because that's going to lead to you being not competitive, right? That's what kind of people say is happening in the US economy. Our incomes are high, productivity is also high, but not as high, but the competition is crazy, right? You can go on the internet and find people working for nothing anywhere in the world. Don't have debt rise faster than income, because then you can't pay off the debt, and do all you can do to increase productivity. The more work you can get done, the better it is for the US economy. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is just something I learned from the video Ray Dalio made. It's a very interesting video. I'm going to link it. Please check it out. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below on what you learned. What one thing you learned that you're going to apply today. This is just not about listening to me. It's about applying the concepts you learned. Have a great day.